terms of points. It all comes down to qualifying. Hello everybody and welcome to Forever Motorsports on Forever Sports. The Monaco Grand Prix is upon us. Reese is joining me here as we're going to go and look at all the various things leading into the weekend. Of course, Red Bull leading the Constructors' Championships and the Drivers' Championships with Perez and Verstappen. Lots of things could happen this week in terms of points. It all comes down to qualifying, of course, in Monaco. Monaco, not the most exciting racetrack, but certainly one of the most historic, if not the most historic, in the world. Reese, your thoughts heading into the brilliant challenge, I suppose, in terms of a time trial, that is Monaco.
Yes, well, Monaco is, of course, a very, very special race weekend on our calendar. It is such a spectacle. We have so many big Formula One fans, as well as a lot of celebrities that come to watch in Monaco. It is, as you say, not the most exciting race in terms of racing. It is just pretty much a time trial, with a lot of the race results being taken from qualifying the day before, as the track is just so narrow, and it is, with these new cars, pretty much impossible to overtake here.
Yeah, and I mean, we've just got a few facts, of course, that we're going to go through for Monaco going into this weekend, but just some did you knows and things like that, and then, of course, looking at the news heading straight into the Monaco weekend, such as Lewis Hamilton potentially going to Ferrari in the coming years as a replacement there in that Ferrari seat. We're looking at the Mercedes upgrades, of course, that are going into this weekend. So that's the big news, of course. And yeah, it's just some other small news items that have also happened. Not much else has really happened, but otherwise looking at what could potentially go down this weekend in the streets of Monaco. So Reese, just run us through here, the Masters of Monaco.
Yes, of course. We see just such incredible performances here from those outstanding drivers that we have in Formula One history, with the likes of Ayrton Senna, who famously burst onto the Formula One scene with a storming performance in the rain-soaked 1984 Monaco Grand Prix, and currently holds the record for the most wins at Monaco, with 6 race wins here, including 5 consecutive victories between 1989 and 1993. Graham Hill then, next on the list, took 5 of his 14 Formula One wins on the streets of Monaco between 1963 and 1969. Then onto one of my favourite Formula One drivers of all time. I got to see a few of his championship winning cars last weekend in Maranello. Michael Schumacher, who took 5 victories in the Principality here in Monaco between 1994 and 2001. Next on the list then is Alain Prost, who won 4 times in the 1980s, while battling it out against Sterling Moss and Jackie Stewart, each winning 3 times at Monaco. Of the current top crop of drivers, Lewis Hamilton has had 3 wins in Monaco, Max Verstappen and Sergio Perez, both with 1 apiece.
Yes, and the interesting thing is Red Bull don't actually, for all that's got those 2 there now, Red Bull don't have a very good history at Monaco at all.
Actually, they do. Red Bull have really done well in the last few years. They won with...
Yes, recently, yes.
Well, they've won with Mark Webber, they've won with Daniel Ricciardo, Max Verstappen and Sergio Perez. They seem to like it here. They have a massive barge that they also bring in from one of the towns nearby. They have to bring it in over the sea, of course, because Monaco is so tight. And they have a massive big Red Bull energy station where they bring a lot of their celebrities and sponsored athletes to come and watch the Monaco Grand Prix.
So Monaco, of course, looking to be Red Bull's, what would it be, 5th victory because of the cancelled Imola. I'm just trying to remember now. Imola, of course, getting cancelled last week, so we're going to have the first bit of Grand Prix racing for a little while because we haven't had a Grand Prix for a long time. Lots of floods, of course, not too far away from Monaco, obviously in the outskirts of Italy and Imola around about there. Reese will know very well. Unfortunately, it was supposed to be a time when Reese was going to be on the ground at Imola. Nonetheless, that'll happen soon. I'm sure we'll get another opportunity to go and see live Grand Prix racing. But going back onto the Monaco Grand Prix, and did you know? Just a couple of these. I'm going to read out just a few of them, just some interesting things. So yeah, Jim Clark took pole at Monaco 4 times, yet he never claimed victory at the track. And another one here, more recently, in 2018, Charles Leclerc became the first Monegasque driver to compete in their home race since Olivier Beretta in 1994. After 3 failed attempts, Leclerc finally reached the checkered flag on home soil for the first time in 2022. Of course, lots of eyes will be on the Monegasque of Charles Leclerc, who's been seen driving around in his Ferrari in the streets of Monaco this week leading up to his home Grand Prix. Could he perhaps pull something off for Ferrari? Of course, Ferrari have had some decent qualifiers so far this season, and Monaco's all down to qualifying. So maybe Charles Leclerc could get a decent qualifying time in.
Yes, he will certainly have to fight it out with Fernando Alonso and Max Verstappen, and of course Sergio Perez, who is the king of the street circuits so far this year. Lots of talk, though, going into this race weekend from Fernando Alonso, who seems quite confident with the Aston Martin's performance. I wonder if they are also bringing some upgrades this race weekend with the likes of Mercedes.
Yeah, I'm certainly hoping to see a very good performance from Aston Martin. I think, funny enough, this might be a weekend where the points are really quite scattered throughout the bunch, because if Red Bull don't qualify 1 and 2, they're not going to finish 1 and 2, I don't think. Not unless everybody ahead of them that happens to have finished higher manages to crash out in the race, because it's so unlikely that you'd be overtaken in Monaco. You'd have to do really well to get overtaken, essentially.
The only way we've really seen drivers able to make overtakes, it's not even on track. You have to do it with your strategy. Yes, with your pits. I mean, we've seen it in the past with the Red Bulls and the Ferraris, where the Red Bulls just caught the Ferraris out and were able to leapfrog them in the pits. But we'll have to see what happens this race weekend. There is also a lot of rain scheduled, so we could have another very, very exciting race on our hands here in Monaco.
Yeah, and going back to the whole overtake story, of course, one of the only ways you can overtake is undercutting through the pits and through strategy like that. But if you do get held up behind other drivers, you can't go quicker, and that could lose you time in terms of trying to overtake those people in the pits. So even though Red Bull might be aiming for that sort of strategy, if they should not finish 1 and 2, they're going to have to try and get around people to make up time. And if they get stuck behind slower cars, then they're going to be stuck behind slower cars.
I mean, never mind slower cars. We've seen in the past in Rasgas where I think it may have been Pascal Wehrlein in the Sauber who managed to lose it and just completely block the entire road, and everyone had to stop behind them. They were not able to get past at all. I mean, if that happens and you're racing against P1 and you get caught by a back marker like that, that can completely ruin your race if you do not get a safety car.
Yeah, I mean, it's just a ridiculous thing in Monaco. And just going on to more ridiculousness, just a couple more facts for you as well. The hairpin, of course, the very famous hairpin there in Monaco, is the slowest corner in the F1 calendar, taken at just 48 kilometers an hour. That's what me, you, and everybody at home drive at. The corner has had a number of names through the years. Originally the station hairpin, and then the Lowe's hairpin. It's now named after the hotel which sits on its outside of the track, the Fairmont. And of course, just another little fact for you here. McLaren have led more laps on the Monaco Grand Prix than any other team.
Don't know if we'll see them leading any laps of this race
weekend. They've completed 916 laps in the lead. Michael Schumacher is the driver to have led more laps here than any other driver, having led 435 laps over the course of his career. Insane that. And just one more little fact for you here. 82 different drivers have stood on the Monaco Grand Prix podium over the past 70 years. Ayrton Senna took the most top 3 finishes, 8 in total, while Sebastian Vettel and Lewis Hamilton each finished in the top 3 at Monaco 7 times.
Yes, such an amazing track, of course, to watch. Unfortunately, the racing is not so great. I mean, I think we certainly need to bring some changes in the sport to allow racing to be a bit closer on street circuits like this.
Yeah.
Because these current cars are just so wide and so long, it just does not promote any close racing at all. And if you try to make an overtake here, I think both cars will pretty much end up in the wall.
Yeah, it's the cars are too big, unfortunately. That's the problem with Monaco and a lot of street circuits, some of them. The cars now are huge, and that's the problem, is that there's no space to now overtake. But moving on to a couple of changes that have happened this year with regards to Monaco, is that F1 has stopped the Thursday practice at Monaco Grand Prix. And if you'll know, and if you've been watching Formula One, Monaco usually has the first practice on a Thursday to then break on the Friday before continuing on the Saturday and the Sunday. And here is why they have stopped the practices taking place on the Thursday. Otherwise, that would have been today. Formula One so it says, until the changes made last year, drivers would have tackled the challenging twists and turns of the Principality on Thursday before taking off. The tradition is no more. The Ascension Day is the reason I think the Monaco Grand Prix traditionally coincides with the Monegasque Ascension Day bank holiday. The holiday falls on the Friday of the event, so F1 has historically paused operations to mark the day, allowing local traffic to pass through the Principality streets with relative ease, whilst local businesses were able to use the break to restock before what would be a hectic weekend period. But for 2022 and 2023 now, F1 took the decision to remove the break day and revert to a more familiar 3-day weekend schedule. So quite interesting the fact that Monaco themselves have a bank holiday, or the alternative, a national holiday
race weekend.
for the Grand Prix weekend almost, because it literally falls on the Friday of the F1 event. It's scheduled in any certain time. It's when the F1 is, and that just tells you how important Formula One is for Monaco.
Yes, just before we move on to the next article, just another fact that I saw that we had historically we've had Monaco have been in charge of all of the production as well as the direction of the footage for the Formula One race weekend. But this year, Formula One have decided to take back that from Monaco. Thank goodness, because often in the past we've seen terrible directing. Often we see there's a battle for the front, and then we go and see Lance Stroll at the back. I mean, really. So it's quite a welcome change for sure that we are going to have Formula One taking over directorship for the Formula One Monaco Grand Prix race weekend. I'm sure it will be a lot better than what we've had in the past.
Yeah, I'm certain that we won't be faffing about at the back with the Alpha Tauris and the Alfa Romeos, and more faffing about with those Mercedes drivers, Ferrari drivers, and Red Bull drivers. And speaking of Mercedes, of course, lots of news this week. Before we get even into Mercedes' big upgrades that are coming this weekend, hint, hint, nudge, nudge, before we get into it, just so you stick around for a little bit longer. Side pods are the big talk, of course. But the other big talk in Mercedes is that of Lewis Hamilton and his potentially going to Ferrari. What do you know about this, Reese?
Well, I can pretty much shoot this down almost immediately, but I will wait for that for a few minutes. But there's been a lot of talk, of course. It is that time of the season where we have silly season pretty much taking over, where drivers' contracts are coming to the end at the end of 2020. Well, what are we in now? 2023. Yes, so Lewis Hamilton's contract comes to an end at the end of this year. So, of course, there are going to be a lot of rumours, as per usual, when you have such a high caliber driver coming to the end of his contract. But there's been a lot of talk about Ferrari wanting to sign Lewis Hamilton. Of course, I'm sure Lewis would prefer to stay with Mercedes if they can get to the bottom of their issues with their zero side pod car, or, as we'll talk about later, a side pod car. But the biggest part of the rumours of him going to Ferrari is the fact that they are reportedly going to offer him £40 million a year to race in the red Ferrari seat.
Yeah, I mean, it's I know it's all ridiculous talk, but at the end of the day, it's not abnormal for Ferrari to go and do this sort of thing, because we have seen Ferrari go and get great drivers near the end of their careers to come in and fill that spot. We saw that with Sebastian Vettel, of course, and the likes of, I mean, yes, Michael Schumacher wasn't at the end of his career, but was certainly there for many, many, many years. And they went and got back Kimi Raikkonen again as well, after having a great season, great couple of seasons with them prior to that, many years before that. So they're not adverse to going and getting a seasoned professional back in for a couple of seasons. So it wouldn't be unlike Ferrari.
It certainly worked for them in the past with Michael Schumacher. Of course, he wasn't as seasoned back then, but he was in Benetton. He won his first championship with them. He could have stayed on and won more championships with them, but Michael decided to go across to Ferrari and give himself a bit of a challenge. Maybe that is what Hamilton is looking for at the moment. A bit of a challenge to build up a team from not necessarily race wins. I mean, Ferrari are able to win races, but maybe just to structure the team a bit better and allow them to, well, for him to tell them where they need to make changes. Of course, they've got Fred Vasseur, their new team principal, who has come out already and said all of this is just as it seems. It's just rumours. They haven't had any contract talks with Hamilton or his management so far. But as we know in Formula One, where there's smoke, there's often fire.
Yes, I know. And the good thing is that a lot of these stories, you know, a lot of them gibberish and rubbish and a lot of that stuff. But sometimes, as we says, if there's smoke, there's fire sometimes. And I would not be surprised as well, because of course team principals are never going to go out and say, yes, of course we are going after Lewis Hamilton and things like that. So I doubt very much they are, but
I mean,
wouldn't be surprised.
you'd be stupid not to take a dig at getting Hamilton in your seat. He is a seasoned professional with 7 world championships. I'm sure every team on the grid would love to have him. Whether they could afford them, though, that is the question.
Yeah. And of course, now we move to the next little piece of information. That is, of course, the amazing thing. So I've just got a little bit of the image right ahead of my face here, which is quite funny. But I'm just going to move that ahead of myself. There we go. Look at that. So one thing that we can look forward to this weekend, well, speaking about Mercedes and Lewis Hamilton, is the big upgrades that have been leaked online ahead of it, and that we've seen for Mercedes heading into the weekend. So Formula 1 journalist Albert Fabrega has taken to social media to share a photo of the reported new side pods on the Mercedes W14 ahead of the Monaco Grand Prix. The Silver Arrows were due to unveil a radical shake-up to their car at Imola prior to the race's cancellation. That would have made a lot more sense, because unveiling upgrades to Monaco is a bit of an odd one, considering it's a very difficult racetrack. Nonetheless, the team currently find themselves unable to compete with Red Bull in their dominant RB19 and have pinned that on their notorious zero-pod design this season. And big news of the week is the fact that they no longer have zero pods.
Well, it is a bit deeper than just the side pods. I've been, of course, going into it quite a lot today. I am putting together a technical analysis video for all of you guys, and that shall be up hopefully shortly this race weekend. It's not just the side pods that they have made radical changes to. Most of their front suspension is completely different. Trying to address the they have braking issues quite a lot. You hear George Russell and Lewis Hamilton talking about their front suspension changes are hoping to tackle that quite a bit better. But of course, the major aesthetic change that you can see is those side pods finally being brought back. Whether this is going to allow them to compete immediately, I don't think so. They've got 1.5 years now to catch up on the rest of the grid.
Yeah.
I mean, they've all been running side pods for 1.5 years. Mercedes have adamantly stuck to the zero side pod design, and now they have to catch up 1.5 years of R&D, 1.5 years of error analysis. This has really bit them in the bum.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, just to go further on and furthering on from what Reese is saying, bring a significant upgrade package like the one that we're talking about to the narrow street circuit of Monaco is really quite risky. Of course, Monaco being one of the most difficult tracks to race for all these drivers, and so tight, likelihood of putting their car into the wall quite highly likely. And when you're running upgrades, you don't really want to be doing any sort of repairs and having to do damage limitation, because you wanted to see how the car can get around. And also, you're not really going to get a good idea of how well the upgrades have managed to work, because it's not a normal track.
It is such a slow street circuit as well. Of course, as you said earlier, it has the slowest corner on the Formula 1 calendar, which means that if they're trying to do any aerodynamic analysis, you're not going to get very good data from it, because you don't have any long straights to get some good fluid dynamics testing, where they paint those cars in those high-vis paints, which allow them to see how the air flows down their car. You're not going to get a lot of that, because it's so slow, and you don't have a long straight to allow that paint to really show you where the air is moving over that car.
No, as I said, so lots of things to go and talk about, and of course, as Reese says, he's going to be doing a video, a deep dive into all of those changes for the weekend. But could this potentially put Mercedes back into the question of future races? Who knows? As I'm sure it's the step in the right direction for the Silver Arrows, or slash the Black Arrows now, as I think I might call them. But
Carbon arrows.
The Carbon Arrows, yes. But nonetheless, Mercedes have got lots of work to do. But could this potentially lead them in the right direction for George Russell and Lewis Hamilton and Toto Wolff and all of the other buggers at Mercedes? And we move on to just the last little bit of news with regards to those upgrades, and that's exactly what we're pretty much saying, is the fact that Mercedes must not draw too many conclusions from the upgrades, says team principal Toto Wolff.
Yes, I mean, they are currently 122 points adrift from Red Bull after only 5 races so far this season. Mercedes were originally going to bring their new developments to the Emilia-Romagna Grand Prix. Of course, we know that was unfortunately cancelled due to the drastic weather conditions that were taking place in the Emilia-Romagna region, which I think unfortunately even bit them further due to the fact that they were not able to get some testing done. I think that's pretty much what they were planning in Emilia-Romagna or Imola. They were pretty much just going to be doing testing that entire race weekend. They were writing it off. But this race weekend in Monaco is where they have now brought these upgrades. The revised calendar means that Monaco is now the starting point of the European leg of the season, said Wolf. It is a unique event, but will still provide an opportunity to learn about the upgrades to the W14. But we also need to be careful not to draw too many conclusions from this one event. We are introducing the first step in a new development direction. It's about time. I'm sure many Mercedes fans will be happy that they have finally dropped that zero side pod design. We can call it a concept because it was
a concept that never worked.
That never actually gave them any race wins in a season and 5 races. It won't be a silver bullet, says Wolf. From my experience, they do not exist in our sport. We hope that it gives the drivers a more stable and predictable platform. Once again, going onto that front suspension, it should give them a lot more stability in braking as well as turning. We hope that it gives the drivers a more stable and predictable, as I said, then we can build on that in the weeks and months ahead. Formula One is tough. It's a competition that does not allow mediocrity. We are not where we want to be, but there's no sense of entitlement. It's just about hard work to get us to the front. And unfortunately, Mercedes has a lot of hard work ahead of them in the next, I think for the rest of the season, really, we're not going to see them challenging for the front. They may now really fall to the midfield with these upgrades until they get to grips with it.
Or they could suddenly find themselves right at the front after qualifying, and it'll be the most hilarious thing in the world.
I would be extremely, extremely surprised.
Of course, it's 0.00001% chance, but perhaps, maybe, I'm going to do this for all the Merc fans who are so desperate to see their team get back into winning position. Maybe this is the upgrade they always needed, and that car's going to be suddenly quicker than that Red Bull.
I mean, the only data they have at all on side pods is from Spain testing in early 2021. That is it. They have, I think, 2 days worth of data on that from when they were still hiding their zero side pods concept. And that's it. I mean, they have really, really found themselves on the back foot here. Just from, I think it's Naomi Schiff here speaking, I don't think he's considering it, leaving Mercedes. Talking about Lewis Hamilton with the Ferrari contract negotiations. But if these upgrades do not live up to what Mercedes are hoping that they will, potentially, let's talk about next season, and they start poorly again, then he will be considering it in what manner he wants to end his Formula One career. Of course, that is, I mean, you have to give it to Hamilton. He has had a stellar career up until this point. You don't want to end up finishing your career being in the back. I mean, you want to be still challenging for races. Last year was his first season in Formula One where he hasn't won a race. I mean, he will be fuming about that, I'm sure.
Yeah. As I say, this is all in anticipation of the Monaco Grand Prix. So, lots and lots of things to look forward to, of course, in what is arguably the most dire race to watch, but the most famous and most luxurious event, I'd almost say, in the world calendar for any sport. It is, of course, Monaco Grand Prix in Formula One. Just quickly going into this weekend, of course, we're looking at the driver standings here. We've got Max Verstappen in first place, Sergio Perez in second, Fernando Alonso in third. That little friend that's always there, the third wheel, that is Fernando Alonso. Lewis Hamilton, however, in that Mercedes is currently sitting fourth, Carlos Sainz in fifth, George Russell in sixth, and the Monegasque of Charles Leclerc in seventh, with the following Aston Martin, Lance Stroll in eighth. Can any of those teams manage to get something up on those two Red Bulls? Up at number one, of course, Red Bull still leading the Constructors' Championship by a hell of a long way already. And other teams to sort of look out for, of course, Alpine racing in what is almost a home but not quite a home Grand Prix, of course, Monaco in between Italy and France, so almost home for Alpine. Alfa Romeo as well will be looking to try and have a decent few fans there, hopefully supporting Valtteri Bottas and Guan Yu Zhou. Oscar Piastri in the McLaren and Lando Norris in the McLaren will be needing to try and do something this weekend to sort of get their season back on track.
Yes, just touching on the McLaren, they also have brought in a special livery for this race weekend. We saw them doing it you snigger, but yes, they have brought in a Triple Crown livery, just paying homage to their, I think it was an Indy 500 win, Le Mans win, as well as a Monaco Grand Prix one. So they have a black nose on their car, a white central part, and then orange at the back. A lot of people saying it looks like a cigarette, but it is a welcome change, at least to McLaren. I'm sure fans will be excited about the livery, but will we be seeing much of it? I don't think so down in P18.
Well, you know,
P19.
maybe with less orange paint, it might be a slightly lighter because you know white paint is lighter than darker paint. So you know it's a little bit more white. So maybe that's all the pace they need.
I still don't think it's going to fix McLaren's.
No, not at all. And of course, other teams that are in trouble at the moment: Haas, AlphaTauri, and the Williams. So could those teams do something in the midfield? This is all in anticipation of the Monaco Grand Prix. Guys, thank you so much for watching Forever Motorsports going into this weekend. Big weekend. Reese, thank you so much for being here as well. I've been Mark. Reese has been Reese. You have been watching Forever Motorsports. Let's get into the Monaco Grand Prix. Cheerio.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to Forever Motorsports on Forever Sports. Today's guide on how to watch the 2023 Formula One season, which kicks off this weekend. The Bahrain Grand Prix will officially get the season underway, and there is just so much action between now and about November when the season will come to an end. Just races all around the world, more sprints, more races, a busier season than ever, and yeah, I think it's going to be a very interesting season to see exactly if Red Bull can continue to sort of assert their dominance, if we're going to see Mercedes coming back, what are we going to see? And the question is, how can you watch all the action throughout the season? Now, the first things first is that we will do videos for every single Grand Prix. We will do videos on how to watch that particular Grand Prix on a free-to-air broadcaster. Which means that as long as you subscribe to the channel and you monitor us, you'll be able to sort of find out how to watch every single race on a free-to-air broadcaster. And so make sure you subscribe to the channel for that. Now, to be able to do that, though, however, there are very different broadcasters from around the world. So what you're going to do is you're going to get yourself a VPN. I recommend using ExpressVPN because we've tried and tested it and it just works. So what you're going to do, link in the description, get ExpressVPN, get yourself that year subscription as well. If you sign up for a year subscription, you'll actually get an extra 3 months for free, which means you'll be able to start watching from this weekend and it'll cover you up to about June next year. You're going to install ExpressVPN and it's going to come up something looking like that. And you think if you click on the right hand side there, you're then going to get these this pop up, and those are all the locations of all the various places where you can connect to sort of servers. And what it does, it kind of geolocates your device. So for example, for Bahrain, there are free-to-air broadcasts in Belgium as well as in Austria. So you connect to those locations and you go to those sites. But if you totally wanted to watch the entire season, my recommendation would be to get F1 TV Pro. Now, it is only available in certain locations, that being the US, the Netherlands, Sweden, I think Spain, Germany. Then you'll need to use ExpressVPN if it's not covered in that region. And again, so what you do is you go on ExpressVPN, you go and select the United States, and then all you do is you turn it on. As soon as this goes green, it means that you are currently connected to a server in the United States. You're then going to go and sign up for F1 TV Pro, which is $45 for the entire year. Alternatively, it is $5 a month, which is really not a lot of money. And you can get so many more things. You can watch onboard footage with individual drivers. You get behind-the-scenes content. It really is the best way to watch Formula One. However, you can only watch it in those regions. And that is where a VPN, like ExpressVPN, will come in clutch and enable you to really sort of get the most out of F1 TV. Check out the description for a sort of step-by-step guide on exactly how you can do it. Apart from that, we'll see you guys throughout the season.
Hello and welcome to Forever Motorsports on Forever Sports. Just coming at you after the first practice session in Monaco. Quite an interesting session that we had with a lot of testing going on. Of course, the Mercedes bring major upgrades this race weekend, as well as a few small upgrades from other teams with the likes of McLaren and Haas, as well as Williams, who have brought a new rear wing here in Monaco. Just going to look at the top 10 to start off with, and then we will talk a little bit more about what happened in the session. We have Carlos Sainz, who managed to top the time boards with a 113.3, quite quickly breaking the 114s here in Monaco, closely followed by Fernando Alonso, only 0.3 seconds behind the chart topper of Carlos Sainz. Behind him was Lewis Hamilton in that upgraded Mercedes with their new side pods, followed by Sergio Perez, the top Red Bull at the moment in P4. Then the second Ferrari of Charles Leclerc down in P5, of course, being the Monegasque's home race here in Monaco. Max Verstappen then down in P6, Lando Norris in the slightly upgraded McLaren in P7, Esteban Ocon in P8, Lance Stroll, the second Aston Martin, all the way down in P9. Quite a bit of a difference between the two Aston Martin teammates, with Fernando Alonso being in P2 and Lance Stroll down in P9. And then all the way down in P10, we have Alex Albon, who had quite a good session up until the very last 2 minutes, where he managed to completely shunt his car. And it is a bit of an unknown at the moment whether he is even able to get into practice 2 due to the amount of damage that he has caused to his car, breaking both the front left as well as the rear left, which could cause a gearbox change to happen in that Williams garage. So quite a lot of work for the Williams mechanics to do between this first practice and second practice session. Then moving on to the bottom 10, we have Valtteri Bottas down in P11, Kevin Magnussen in 12th, Yuki Tsunoda, who has also been quite a lot of talk with the Honda powertrains moving across to Aston Martin, down in P13, Pierre Gasly in P14 for the Alpines, George Russell in that second Mercedes, not finding as much pace as his teammate Lewis Hamilton down in P15. Nick de Vries in P16, Oscar Piastri down in P17, who also had a bit of a blunder this practice session, not due to his own fault though, but due to his mechanics, doing a practice pit stop and putting on that right rear, I think a little bit too hard, and possibly breaking the I don't know what it was that broke, but he just completely lost drive and had to come back into the pits. Then after Logan Sargent, Guan Yu Zhou, or Zhou Guan Yu rather, down in P19, and Nico Hulkenberg down in P20, also having a bit of a shunt, losing it in turn 10 and hitting his rear left on the wall there. They're completely stripping that tire off of the rim, and also just having to nurse his car back into the pits and not getting any more running for the rest of that session. Was quite an interesting session though, with the likes of the Mercedes showing some pace. Well, the Mercedes of Lewis Hamilton, that is. George Russell not seeming to be as comfortable in the upgraded Mercedes as Lewis Hamilton. Lots of upgrades though taking place on the Mercedes with their new side pods, as well as what you can't see as much is those new front suspension stays being mounted quite a lot higher than previously, just to help with a lot of the stability and drivability of that car. So hopefully we will see Mercedes being able to compete a bit more closely this race weekend. So far, though, it looks like the Ferraris are very competitive this weekend. Will we be able to see a final P1 for Charles Leclerc in his home race? I mean, he's been able to take the top of the qualifying results before, but never has he been able to win in his home Grand Prix. Will we see that change this weekend, or will we see the Red Bulls once again being absolutely dominant in Monaco? Of course, this race weekend is so dependent on your qualifying results, as it is so difficult to overtake due to the narrowness of the street circuit, as well as these new modern F1 cars just being so wide and so long. But
we will have to see what happens in the next qualifying session later today. Certainly going to be keeping our eyes out on that. We hope to see you there alongside with us very soon. But that has been us for Free Practice 1. Thank you very much.
Hello everybody and welcome to Forever Motorsports on Ferris Sport. Today's guide on how to watch the 2023 Formula One season, which kicks off this weekend. The Bahrain Grand Prix will officially get the season underway, and there is just so much action between now and about November when the season will come to an end. Just races all around the world, more sprints, more races, a busier season than ever, and yeah, I think it's going to be a very interesting season to see exactly if Red Bull can continue to sort of assert their dominance, if we're going to see Mercedes coming back, what are we going to see? And the question is, how can you watch all the action throughout the season? Now, the first things first is that we will do videos for every single Grand Prix. We will do videos on how to watch that particular Grand Prix on a free-to-air broadcaster. Which means that as long as you subscribe to the channel and you monitor us, you'll be able to sort of find out how to watch every single race on a free-to-air broadcaster. And so make sure you subscribe to the channel for that. Now, to be able to do that, though, however, there are very different broadcasters from around the world. So what you're going to do is you're going to get yourself a VPN. I recommend using ExpressVPN because we've tried and tested it and it just works. So what you're going to do, link in the description, get ExpressVPN, get yourself that year subscription as well. If you sign up for a year subscription, you'll actually get an extra 3 months for free, which means you'll be able to start watching from this weekend and it'll cover you up to about June next year. You're going to install ExpressVPN and it's going to come up something look like that. And you think if you click on the right hand side there, you're then going to get these this pop up, and those are all the locations of all the various places where you can connect to sort of servers. And what it does, it kind of geolocates your device. So for example, for Bahrain, there are free-to-air broadcasts in Belgium as well as in Austria. So you connect to those locations and you go to those sites. But if you totally wanted to watch the entire season, my recommendation would be to get F1 TV Pro. Now it is only available in certain locations, that being the US, the Netherlands, Sweden, I think Spain, Germany. Then you'll need to use ExpressVPN if it's not covered in that region. And again, so what you do is you go on ExpressVPN, you go and select the United States, and then all you do is just turn it on. As soon as this goes green, it means that you are currently connected to a server in the United States. You're then going to go and sign up for F1 TV Pro, which is $45 for the entire year. Alternatively, it is $5 a month, which is really not a lot of money. And you can get so many more things. You can watch onboard footage with individual drivers. You get behind-the-scenes content. It really is the best way to watch Formula One. However, you can only watch it in those regions. And that is where a VPN, like ExpressVPN, will come in clutch and enable you to really sort of get the most out of F1 TV. Check out the description for a sort of step-by-step guide on exactly how you can do it. Apart from that, we'll see you guys throughout the season.
Good afternoon and welcome back to Forever Motorsports on Forever Sports. Joining you before Free Practice 2 here in Monaco was certainly a very, very eventful FP1 session. I'm sure that FP2 will be just as eventful today. We certainly have a lot to look forward to. Mercedes, though, seeming to make a bit of a bounce back with their new upgrades this season. Certainly looking better than their zero side pod concept. Finally ditching that and now going with the more conventional side pods. Also making a few changes to their suspension, going more in the direction that Red Bull have, where their front suspension is mounted quite high up to allow them to be a bit more stable under braking, as well as to allow them to not have as much of a diving effect under braking as well. I do apologize for the sun. Unfortunately, in my picture, we don't have power at the moment due to every South African's favorite thing at the moment, Eskom, but we live with it and we make do. So here we are nonetheless. Not long to go until FP2 gets underway, about 16 minutes left to go, but we will chat you through FP1 highlights as well as what we can expect from this next session. I think we'll be getting a few qualifying simulations underway, so maybe some soft tire running in the session, unlike the session before where there was only hard and medium tire running. Hopefully we'll be able to get some soft tire running here today and get some better representative times in. Of course, FP2 is a lot more representative of the qualifying on Saturday evening, as it is around the same time as we will have qualifying tomorrow. which of course you want to get in some qualifying practice in representative times, as well as representative track temperature and track conditions. We were expecting a lot more rain though this race weekend. So far, they still get some in F2. We'll have to see what happens with that. Of course, FP1 was very interesting in the fact that we had a few offs. We had Nico Hulkenberg, who managed to clip the wall into turn 10, just managing to rip that tire straight off the rim and causing him to spin around and giving us the first red flag of that session. Then we had later on, with about 3 to 4 minutes left to go of the session, we had Alex Albon finishing up a hot lap, and he just managed to lose it into turn 1, completely destroying his Williams, breaking that left rear tire as well as his front left tire as well, also destroying the rear wing. We'll have to see, but I do think that he will be having to take a new gearbox due to that massive shunt, which will keep the Williams mechanics very, very busy if they have not been able to replace it before the session already. We'll have to see. So if you did not watch the preview up to this session, our finishes from FP1 were as follows. We had Carlos Sainz taking the pole, closely followed by I think it was Fernando Alonso. Let me just pull it up. Then in P3, I think it was Charles Leclerc. Let me just get these times up for you before I just try suck it up. But yes, certainly a very interesting free practice one. Great to see Lewis Hamilton performing quite well there in that first practice session. If that is representative, though, for Mercedes the rest of this weekend, we will have to see. I think we'll get a bit more of an indication in this session. George Russell, though, not seeming to be as comfortable as his teammate in that first practice session, maybe just getting a bit more to grips with the new Mercedes W14 B-Spec car. Of course, B-Spec being because they did change from their A-Spec, which was their zero side pods concept, which was unfortunately just a concept as it never really worked. So now they have finally adopted a more standard side pod approach to their design. Still trying to find these standings for you guys. But yes, still looking very, very good for Ferrari, though, this weekend. They seem to be quite competitive here in FP1. Whether they'll be able to carry that momentum through to FP2, we will have to see, as we often get teams just showing a bit more of their pace in the second session of a race weekend. Just having another look at that crash that ended free practice 2 here with Alex Albon. Just going into turn 1, he got quite a big hand of oversteer from the rear, just causing him to slide into the barriers, then which caused the front as well to hit into the barriers, completely destroying that front wing, the rear wing, and both tires on the left-hand side. Quite a high energy impact there, hoping that he is okay. He did say on the radio that he would be okay, but that is going to be a lot of work for the Williams mechanics to do. That will need a new floor, a new rear wing, new front wing, new left, both tires on the left, as well as possibly a new gearbox if it has managed to damage the gearbox of his car. Currently sitting outside the garage of George Russell and Lewis Hamilton, looking at that new spec Mercedes. It certainly looks quite rapid, but Monaco is not necessarily the most indicative track, as it is not so long. It is very dependent on high downforce, so whether they are actually competitive or will be competitive for the rest of the season, we will still have to wait and see. But certainly good to see them being a little bit more competitive in the first practice session. I do have those first practice session results here for you now. We finished with Carlos Sainz in P1, Fernando Alonso closely behind, 0.3 seconds behind Carlos Sainz's time of 1:13.3 in P2. Lewis Hamilton in P3, I do apologize, I said Leclerc. In P4, we have Sergio Perez, followed by Charles Leclerc in P5. Max Verstappen down in P6, not very happy during that session, complaining a lot about bouncing. Of course, we get Max Verstappen on the radio a lot, complaining throughout the session, but looking a little bit off the pace of his teammate Sergio Perez. Lando Norris in the special livery McLaren down in P7. Esteban Ocon, the first of the Alpines, P8. Lance Stroll in P9. Alex Albon had that massive shunt at the end of the session down in P10. Valtteri Bottas in the Alfa Romeo in P11. Kevin Magnussen in P12. Yuki Tsunoda in P13 with Pierre Gasly 14th, Russell 15th, quite some way off of his teammate who is all the way up in 3rd. Then we have Nick de Vries down in 16th, Oscar Piastri, who also had a bit of a blunder in that session due to his mechanics over-tightening a wheel on his car during a pit stop practice, then him getting out on track and just seeming to lose drive and having to come back into the pits. We then have Logan Sargent down in 18th, followed by Zhou Guanyu in 19th, and Nico Hulkenberg, who of course had that bit of a shunt down in 20th position. Just having a bit of a look here now at the differences between the Mercedes A-Spec and B-Spec. Of course, the A-Spec having that zero side pod design, just of course, in concept, it looked like it would work. It looked like it should be a lot faster down the straights than all of the other teams, but unfortunately, in reality, it just did not come to play for the Mercedes team. Now we have the side pods on the side of those cars looking a lot different to any other concept that any of the other teams have. The floor looking a bit similar to the McLarens, but the side pods being much lower down than some of the other teams. But it does have a bit of that duct in the middle, similar to the Ferraris, and also drops off a bit similar to the Red Bulls, but does not have as much of a cutoff as the Red Bulls do. It seems to flow all the way to the end of their floor, similar to the McLarens. Just having a bit of a look more in detail at the curves of that floor, just how they seal the air around certain sections, just trying to optimize the airflow throughout that car. Certainly looks like it is working a bit in free practice 1, but of course, as I said earlier, free practice 1 is not the greatest indicator, but hopefully we will see a lot more from them. Vincent Mains just saying there, best Formula 1 watch along on YouTube, much appreciated. Thank you very much for watching alongside us. Please do leave us a comment down in the comment section, letting us know where you are tuning in from, who you support, as well as please do vote in our poll, as well as leaving us a like, and please also subscribe to our channel. It is much appreciated. Still having a look here at the having a look at this Mercedes floor, just looking how detailed it is, of course, compared to their A-Spec car. They certainly have brought a lot of upgrades, but the top section of the car still looks very similar to their A-Spec, with that little bit of it looks like a shoulder around the front, around the top of their car, where they still have some paint. Of course, the top section of that car only has paint. The rest of the car is all carbon fiber, down to weight saving for the Mercedes car. Carlos looking very quick in the first section, beating out his teammate Charles Leclerc, who is of course racing at his home race here, the Monegasque Racing in Monaco. He's taken P1 in qualifying before, but has never finished P1 in a race here at his home. Certainly will be wanting to make that stat go away this race weekend, as we see a replay of Carlos Sainz going, I think, into turn 17 and 18, just getting so close to that wall there, just skimming it so slightly, but still making his way through there without any issues. Certainly going to be a very interesting race weekend ahead of us. Of course, our race results often get chosen by qualifying the day before on Saturday. It is such a narrow track that it is often impossible to pass around here. And as I said, we get our race result taken from qualifying on the Saturday. It is a bit of a procession, but it is just such a spectacular race on our calendar. It is certainly one that a lot of fans seem to look forward to. It is also one of the most expensive circuits to go and watch at on the calendar, with tickets being around €1,000 for the cheapest one. I think it's around 800 to €1,000 for the cheapest ticket on the Monaco Grand Prix circuit, which is rather crazy, actually. I mean, taking into consideration how much I paid for my ticket in Imola, which unfortunately was cancelled last weekend, but we don't complain. We have Formula 1 back again this weekend. Certainly would have been great to watch, but still glad to have it on again. When I was saying about how much my ticket cost in not Monaco, Imola, it was only around 1,000 Rand, which equates to even less than 100 euros. So it shows you how much they charge for a ticket here in Monaco, as we now have the titles rolling, as we have 5 minutes left until we have the green light for FP2. Please do let us know down in the comment section who you are supporting, who you would like to see take pole tomorrow and the race win on Sunday, as well as please do vote in our poll that we have running. We will go through that a bit later in this session for sure. It was very interesting going up until this race weekend. We had the Formula One drivers charity football match, which takes place often before the Formula One Monaco race weekend. We had I think it was Pierre Gasly taking part in that, Charles Leclerc, as well as Carlos Sainz taking part. We had in the past Mick Schumacher also taking part in that, but he was not participating this race weekend. We had, though, Charles Leclerc having taken a bit of a tumble when he was fighting with Pierre Gasly. They were on the same team, but Pierre Gasly managed to trip him, and Charles had a bit of a face plant there, luckily not injuring himself. Carlos Sainz, though, managed to hurt himself a little bit. We have the drivers going over 300 kilometers an hour with the likes of Azerbaijan, Monza, and I think Imola as well is one of the fastest tracks. The track distance, though, only 3.3 kilometers long, not a very long circuit at all, with full throttle only being around 44.79%, not a very high-speed circuit at all, which is why you see the teams taking a very high downforce approach to their setups this weekend. The track lap record here is from Lewis Hamilton in 2019 with a 1 minute 10 seconds, 0.116. So still a few seconds off of that at the moment, with our fastest time being a 1:13 in FP1. Will we see that track lap record being beaten this weekend? We will have to see during qualifying tomorrow. Just watching now, we have the views of the Marina Bay there. Such an incredible view that we have here in Monaco. Something that the likes of, where were we last track? It was in Miami. They have that fake marina trying to replicate the Monaco Marina, but does not do so well with their fake water. And well, now we have the real thing here in Monaco, as we are just waiting to get underway. We have under 2 minutes left to go until we have the green light for FP2. Certainly going to be a very interesting session ahead of us. We will see, I think, a lot more aero testing from the Mercedes, making more setup changes to their car to try and get the best out of it. Just waiting for that green light to get underway, with I think just under a minute left to go now. Just having a look at that Ferrari getting ready to go out on track. Currently, Carlos Sainz is sitting in 5th in the Drivers' Championship standings with 55 points. We see Alex Albon in the back of his garage. Is that car of his ready yet or not? We will have to see. Still looks like quite a lot of work going on at the moment. It is still up on the jacks. No tires on, no brake tins on either, no front wing. Still a lot of work going on. Certainly will still take some time, I think, for him to get out on track. Max Verstappen in his car getting ready to go out on track. Hopefully we will see him going out very soon. 1 minute left to go. It is very hot though out on track at the moment. I think they said 28 degrees at the moment, so that will certainly be eating the softs up if they do choose to go out on those right now. Maybe they'll choose to go out a little bit later on the soft tires, but we now have some drivers out on track, mostly looking like they're on sets of mediums right now, but maybe we will get 1 or 2 drivers getting out on a set of softs. We do, though, currently have the green light for FP2, so we should see some lap times being put in very soon from drivers. Still, though, looking at this Williams garage, a lot of work going on Alex Albon's car. He will not be getting out on track anytime soon. I haven't heard yet if he had to take a new gearbox or not, but just having a listen there, he did have to take a new gearbox, a new floor, new brake tin on the left, new wing. Just so much work for that Williams team to have to do on that car before this session. So it does make a little bit of sense why they are not ready just yet, because honestly, he had just so much damage to that car from the shunt. We can see the back of that Williams is open, still doing a lot of work on the rear there, fixing up that rear wing at the moment, as well as working under the floor. I don't think the floor is even on just yet. Just so much work for those Williams mechanics to do, unfortunately, as we have a couple drivers out on track doing their sighting laps at the moment. Still in the pits, though, we have Max Verstappen, Lando Norris, Sergio Perez, Charles Leclerc, Kevin Magnussen, Alex Albon, and Carlos Sainz. Currently out on track, though, Logan Sargent, Nico Hulkenberg, Nick de Vries, Valtteri Bottas, Esteban Ocon, and as I say that, we do have the Red Bull of Sergio Perez getting out. Very busy track at the moment. There will certainly be a lot of traffic out on track. Just watching Mr. Christian Horner watching over the paddock. Such an interesting paddock that they do have here. The pits, unfortunately, are so narrow here that they have to make them double story. We don't have the pit wall on the side of the pits. We have them on the second story above their pit boxes, because there's just so little space here in Monaco. They have so little space that they don't even have a place for the Formula 2 and Formula 3 cars in Monaco. They actually take them out of Monaco and bring them into Monaco for their respective sessions. George Russell out at the moment, putting in a fastest or a personal best sector 1. We'll see if he is able to bring himself any further up in the standings compared to FP1, where he did not feature as well as his teammate Lewis Hamilton. Lewis Hamilton finishing in 3rd in that session, and Russell all the way down in, I think it was P13. Making his way through turn 10 and 11, where Nico Hulkenberg managed to lose his car. Looking neat and tidy, though, for George Russell at the moment. Putting in a personal best 1st and 2nd sector, but he does not seem to be as comfortable with this new Mercedes as his teammate. Certainly a lot of the upgrades made to the Mercedes would have been to make the car a bit more drivable for Lewis Hamilton, who likes a bit more of a stable car, not so bouncy and unpredictable under braking as the FW15 or 14A spec car was. Currently, we have Fernando Alonso up in P1, Stroll in P2. I think, though, none of those people have put in lap times just yet. So everyone at the moment out on medium tires, apart from the Ferraris, who are out at the moment on a set of hards. Still no soft tire running as of yet in this race weekend. Hopefully we will be seeing some more soft running later in this session, though. Magnussen starting his first timed lap of this session, as Hamilton has now put himself up into P1 with a 1:15.7, still quite a way off the pace of that first session where the fastest lap time was a 1:13. Still, I think mostly just sighting laps at the moment. We'll see some faster lap times being put in quite soon as Verstappen puts himself at the top of the timesheets. Still though, only with a 1:15.4, still quite far off the pace as Russell now leapfrogs Verstappen with a 1:15.482, just 0.005 ahead of the Red Bull at the moment. Going through the tunnel section at the moment, up into making their way to turn 10 and 11. We have Carlos Sainz on a fast lap at the moment, putting in a purple first sector on that set of hards. Just watching what Carlos Sainz can do for himself over here. Not putting in a purple middle sector though for Carlos Sainz, so I don't know if he will be able to improve on George Russell's time at the moment. Coming through that final two corners now. Let's see. DRS wide open and approaching the line now. Where does he put himself? Only in third with a 1:15.5 behind George Russell and Max Verstappen. We have Fernando Alonso, though, on a flying lap at the moment with the first purple sector, which has already been taken away from him. I don't know by who, but we should see very soon. Fernando Alonso, though, takes the middle fastest sector for himself. Valtteri Bottas puts himself up into first with a 1:15.4. Ocon now puts himself up into first with a 1:15.4 as well. Now, Alonso comes across the line with a 1:14.6, the first sub 1:15 of the session. Still quite a lot slower than free practice 1 at the moment. Just watching an onboard of Sergio Perez making his way through the first sector. Ooh, catching so much traffic and just throwing them off there and having to abort that lap. Not very happy there under the helmet for Sergio Perez, just giving a bit of an expletive on the radio. Understandably, of course, because that lap time of his was completely ruined. We have Max Verstappen, though, on another fast lap, putting himself fastest in the first sector. Let's see what he's able to do in that middle sector. Now coming up towards the pool section, 0.3 seconds up on everybody else's time at the moment. Neat and tidy into turns 16 and 17. Now making his way up into turn 18. Rasgas, neat and tidy through there. Now making his way up into turn 19 and 20 before the DRS straight. Fastest first and second sector for Max Verstappen at the moment as he puts himself into the first 1:13s of the session. 1:13.985. Certainly the best lap time that we've seen put together for Max so far this race weekend, having a few issues in FP1, complaining a lot about bouncing as well as bottoming out of the rear of his car as we see the Ferrari and Mercedes coming out of the tunnel at the moment. I think that's Carlos Sainz and Lewis Hamilton. Actually, it's Charles Leclerc, not Carlos Sainz, as we see a lot of work going on at the moment. I think it is Lando Norris's car. Yes, it is Lando Norris's car. A lot of work going on to the front suspension area of that, as well as the brakes. The entire front wing is off, and it is up on the jacks. I apologize. Lando is still in the car at the moment, so we should hopefully still get him out on track soon. Yes, just looks like there's a bit of an issue with the suspension at the moment. I hear from Will Buxton. Possibly also a electronics issue, as we have one of the representatives from the EM Mechanics group just having a look on at the car. Of course, EM Electronics do create a lot of the standardized parts like the wiring looms, so hopefully there's not too many big issues on that car of Lando Norris, but we will have to wait and see, as we have Fernando Alonso on another blistering lap with the fastest first sector. 0.1 seconds up at the moment on Max Verstappen's time. Let's see what Alonso can do now in this final sector, looking neat and tidy into turns 19 and 20, now coming across that DRS zone, wing wide open across the line and puts himself into second position, still a little bit behind the Red Bull of Max Verstappen. Looking quite dominant out there at the moment, as we have Lewis Hamilton coming into the final sector to finish up his lap time with, let's see what he can do here, coming through turns 19 and 20. Now the final two turns, DRS wide open, looking a little bit unstable there, coming out of turn 20, but still putting himself now up into first place, 0.001 seconds ahead of Max Verstappen. The Mercedes upgrades certainly seeming to bring a lot more pace to the Brackley-based team this race weekend. Just watching an onboard here of Carlos Sainz. What does he do? Does he get a bit untidy here? No, he just catches his teammate. That is terrible communication from the Ferrari pit wall. Carlos Sainz on a hot lap there and just managing to catch Charles Leclerc into turn 16. Charles Leclerc completely backed off and just completely ruins that lap of Carlos Sainz. Verstappen, though, once again finishing another hot lap and puts himself back into P1 ahead of Lewis Hamilton, 0.127 seconds ahead of Hamilton's time for now. As we have Yuki Tsunoda putting himself up into fifth with a 1:14.263. 50 minutes left of this session. Still a lot of running left to get underway for sure. We still have Lando Norris and Alex Albon yet to put in a lap time for the session right now. Oscar Piastri currently on his first, one of his first hot laps, currently coming through the first sector at the moment. 0.174 seconds down on the fastest lap time at the moment. Not too bad from Oscar Piastri in his first Monaco Grand Prix race weekend. Very difficult opening season for Oscar Piastri at the moment, as that McLaren just seems to not have the pace that it did have last year. Just quite a bit off the pace of the other midfield teams and just putting them down in the bottom at the moment. Hopefully they will be bringing some upgrades though later this season that will allow them to compete a bit better. Currently in the middle sector now, half a second off of Max Verstappen's fastest time. 0.1 seconds in the first sector, now half a second after the middle sector. Now coming through Rasgas, now 19 and 20, DRS wide open, getting a little bit of a tow from the car ahead of him as he now comes across the line and puts himself into 14th place. Fernando Alonso on another hot lap, fastest in the first sector, personal best in the middle sector. Let's see what he can do now as he comes through 19 and 20, DRS wide open down that, well, I would say main straight, but it's not a very long straight at all. But now puts himself up into second with a 113.8, 0.015 ahead, well, behind of Max Verstappen at the moment. Very, very evenly matched between the Red Bulls and Aston Martins. That's certainly what we want to see as fans out here. We don't want to see Red Bull running away with it. We want to see them so closely matched, and we want to see a fight for that first position this race weekend. Pierre Gasly on a hot lap here, 0.17 seconds off of the fastest lap time at the moment in the middle sector. Let's see what he can do now as he comes through Rasgas, approaching turns 19 and 20, passing the pit lane there. 19 now through 10, 20, DRS wide open down the main straight. And where does he put himself? Up into sixth position for Pierre Gasly behind his teammate Esteban Ocon. Very well done from him at the moment. Let's see if he is able to improve on his lap time further out this session. Just having a look, there's Jean Lacey on the pit wall at the moment, watching over all the cars out on track. Carlos Sainz, interestingly enough, puts himself into P3, 0.096 seconds behind of Max Verstappen's time on a set of hards. So could the Ferraris have a little bit of pace in their hands here this weekend? Alonso is back in the pits though, so hopefully he will be getting out again soon after taking some more fuel in his car, as well as maybe making a few setup changes, and then we should have him back out on track very soon. I'm going to hand over to Mark for a little bit so I can get some water, but I'll be back again very soon to join you. Hopefully by the time I'm back, we will have power, but I doubt it. It might get a little bit dark, but we will still be here to bring you commentary for FP2. Here's Mark.
Coming. Hello, everybody. And yeah, it's me. I'm here overtaking from Reese. Reese is having a short break, and I will continue on the commentary for today. Just put his just getting these earphones on, and yeah, we're good. We've got 45 minutes left of the session. Max Verstappen has gone fastest, a 1:13.5 on mediums. Alonso just behind that in second, Sainz in third currently. So got a really, really good, relatively even field at the moment. Perez all the way down in eighth, also on mediums. Everybody is on mediums at the moment, but towards the latter end of the session, we'll probably see the softs come out. And just watching a replay here of Sergio Perez coming out of the tunnel section, coming into that blinding light, and to that difficult turn there, and just loses a little bit, has to back out of that left-hander immediately and just go down a little bit more straight than he would have liked to. So if that was a lap qualifying attempt, would not have counted. Luckily, this, of course, practice, so he'll be a little bit more wary of it as we do see Perez come into the pits now after that little incident there. And yeah, lots of things happening on track at the moment. And be sure to let me know in the comments what you think of the race weekend so far. Sainz goes into second place with a 1:13.8, goes ahead of Alonso there. So the Ferrari there represented well there by Sainz, his fellow teammate Leclerc in 12th currently on an outlap on a set of hard tyres though, so probably not going to be beating any lap times as of yet. So when he gets onto those medium tyres, we'll see him right at the top of the field, hopefully. So we've got Hülkenberg currently on board, going around this track. As I say, it's such a narrow track. These drivers have to really work hard to try and keep it out of the walls and keep the pace going, because the problem is there are so many slow sections, such as that very famous hairpin here. 48 kilometers an hour they go around that hairpin. That's how low they go down to. And just tells you how slow that corner can be taken, or has to be taken, because it really is such a really, really big turnaround in such a short space as well. So coming out of the tunnel section now, Hülkenberg got a little bit of traffic ahead of him. They're going to go dive off to get out of his way. Camera work is not currently fantastic. We are supposedly following Hülkenberg. We're seeing all of the tons of yachts right now in the marina, obviously. Very famous sights indeed. Hülkenberg here going on. And yeah, I mean, an interesting set so far on this P2. Of course, P1 was also very interesting. And the fact that Mercedes seemed to have found a little bit of a fix with regards to those new upgrades. Everybody said, and we also said, us included, that it's going to be very difficult for them to make use of those upgrades currently, because introducing them into the sort of street circuit where it's so different to almost all the tracks in the calendar, you're not necessarily going to see a massive improvement. And yet, so far, the stats and it's showing us that they seemingly are actually working quite well with them almost immediately, even though they should be quite on the back foot. So hopefully Mercedes have turned a corner, literally. And yeah, we'll see some quicker lap times be put in from that silver arrow, or now the carbon arrow, as it might be called now. And Verstappen, however, still sitting out in the lead, in third, his usual spot this entire season, third place, of course, making it his residency almost. So lots of racing still to happen. And yeah, we will, of course, keep watching on in the session. Just over 40 minutes left. And we might leave you for a little short time just to go and plug in, and we might just have vocal commentary, and we might have to lose the faces temporarily in 5 minutes time. But nonetheless, we will, of course, continue commentating, and the stream will not go down. So do not go anywhere. We, of course, still be following all of this with all the live timings on Forever Motorsports, which can be found on the channel Forever Sports, which is what we're currently on. And yeah, guys, let us know where you're watching from. And yeah, your thoughts so far on the session. Can you believe the fact that we've got Verstappen, Sainz, and Alonso quite close all together currently, all still on mediums. We've not yet seen soft attempts. As we see Perez now going around on a lap, he could hopefully go a little bit quicker. He does put himself all the way up into second alongside his teammate Max Verstappen, but not a massive gap to the cars behind them. Just 0.2 seconds to Carlos Sainz in third from Perez. So very, very close racing from everybody. As we're looking at the replay here of that, just looking at that Alpine again, in terms of where it had that big crash in FP1. So yeah, lots of just looking at the dents that have been made on that bodywork and on the side there. So lots of work there for them to try and just have a look and see what they can fix. But yeah, just once again, that was Pierre Gasly, I think it was, going into that wall earlier in the day. But Max Verstappen now has just put in a new fastest lap, a 1:13.3. I mean, we're going to see sub 1:13s later on the soft tires. So really, really, really quick racing around here in Monaco today. Just watching a replay here again of Sergio Perez, yet again that same corner just after that tunnel section, and again missing the turn completely, locking up badly and having to give up on the turn. So yeah, not looking good there for Sergio Perez in terms of that tunnel section, just seemingly having a few issues so far. Oh my word, that was ridiculously good driving there from, I think, who is this? Because he had to avoid two cars coming straight back onto track. It was fantastic driving. I can't see who it was, but my word, avoiding a big collision there. Sergio Perez, after taking that corner, then came back onto the track, and there was another slow car on the far left, and somebody was doing a hot lap in the middle. Had to avoid both of them and didn't lose any pace in doing so, and was very, very good driving. So well played to whoever that was. I don't know who it was. I think it might have been a Haas. Just trying to see who's on track. I think it might have been Hulkenberg or it might have been an Alfa Romeo. I can't see. It was white, definitely. There was a bit of white on the car. We didn't get to see any other parts. It was the camera was the driver view, so we couldn't really see much of who it was. Just currently now looking at Russell and Hamilton sitting in the pits. So, I mean, whilst they're sitting in the pits, I mean, do discuss, people, the fact that Mercedes in 6th and 7th currently, but in that first session, doing very, very well with a brand new set of upgrades. You know, they've got a massive amount of upgrades on the car for this weekend. A whole lot of changes, finally getting the side pods onto their car, as with everybody else, after believing they didn't need them. Yeah, I mean, how do you think they're faring with the upgrades so far? And yeah, we're just following along here with Fernando Alonso, I believe. Yeah, there's Fernando Alonso on an out lap, and he's now starting a fast lap here. Currently sitting in 5th, Fernando Alonso. He's now on a set of softs, I see. Yes, so soft tire run coming here for Fernando Alonso. So this could be very quick. So let's see how his sector times fare compared to that of Verstappen, Perez, Sainz, and Leclerc, who are all of them ahead of him. He's coming up to the end of the first sector, and he does improve in the first sector by 0.17 seconds. So fastest first sector has been set, a purple first sector for Fernando Alonso. He comes around that hairpin, coming back now through the dirty streets. They're just riding that curb a little bit more than he might have wanted to as he enters the tunnel section now and gets up to full speed here. Well, as close to full speed as possible, getting to about 280, 290 kilometers an hour, then coming to a heavy brake to that left hand, then an immediate right hand back onto that straight for a little while. Should have a quicker time than Verstappen here in sector 2. Yes, it does, by 0.4 seconds quicker than Verstappen. We will probably see, if he doesn't make any stuff up, the new fastest lap of the day. First lap on softs as well. So Fernando Alonso in that Aston Martin coming around the final bend onto the start, finish straight now. And it just, oh my word, gets so close to those walls there and comes down there and puts in a 1.12.78. So 1 minute, 12 seconds. 0.78 milliseconds. So fantastic lap there from Fernando Alonso. As Stroll is following him as well, going very, very quickly. Might put himself up into second behind Alonso. He's coming up to the finish line now, and he goes all the way up into third. Not quicker than Verstappen, but quicker than the rest. So 0.8 seconds off of Alonso's time, though, Stroll. So not as quick as his teammates. So interested to know if they've got full fuel or if they've got low fuel. So just watching a replay of Lando Norris almost nicks the wall there, very, very close to nicking that wall after the tunnel section. So does he actually touch it? Let's just see this replay. Oh my word, that is unbelievable how close he got there. Literally talking millimeters. Nonetheless, did very well to avoid the wall there, Lando Norris. And Bottas now also on softs has put himself into third, quicker than the Aston Martin of Stroll. So all the way up into third is Valtteri Bottas, as now his teammate Guan Yu Zhou starts his fast lap on softs. And now we're going to start seeing all these lap times tumble as everybody puts on the soft tire. Sargent moves into 15th with a soft tire lap. Not fantastic for the Williams there of Sargent, who's got big pressure currently on him, as Reese has alluded to, if you guys have been watching as well. Lots of talk that Toto Wolff is trying to get Mick Schumacher into that Williams seat instead of Sargent. So, yeah, we'll see whether or not that actually takes place. But Guan Yu Zhou following here for his fast lap attempt. He's on a set of softs, entering the tunnel section now. And we do see a lot of cars coming out onto track with those soft tires on. So hopefully these lap times are going to tumble. And coming up towards the end of the second sector, Guan Yu Zhou, let's see how he fares compared to Alonso's time, who's obviously sitting in first. And he puts in quite a bit slower, 0.7 seconds slower than Alonso. Not as slow, actually, as I thought it might have been. And now coming onto that start-finish straight, Guan Yu Zhou just doing the last couple of very, very tight turns. And now into that start-finish straight. Let's see how quickly his time gets in. Right up into, I think that is sixth place. Yeah, great lap there from Guan Yu Zhou. It's not quite challenging the top three, but it's certainly going to put himself into the conversations for the mid-table. Though De Vries has also put in that, putting him into sixth.
Hello and welcome back. Sorry, we just had a few issues there, but they are all sorted out now. We currently have 20 minutes left of this session. Currently at the top of the time boards, we have Max Verstappen with a 1:12.4 seconds, finally breaking that 1:13 barrier on these soft tires. Carlos Sainz closely following behind, just 0.1 seconds behind Max Verstappen's fastest time at the moment in P2. Fernando Alonso in P3, unfortunately getting caught in quite a lot of traffic on his hot lap runs. So he is currently not very impressed about that, but hopefully we will see some more representative times from him very soon. Charles Leclerc, the Monegasque, the home race driver, is down in P4 at the moment, 0.4 seconds behind Max Verstappen's fastest lap time.
Yeah, indeed. As I say, so currently we've got Sainz, Leclerc, Hamilton, Perez, Bottas, Stroll, Russell, and Zhou and Hulkenberg all out on track. Leclerc currently on board with, as he goes around, coming towards the end of Sector 2, and he puts in a slightly slower time than that of Max Verstappen, but right on his tail. Let's see how he can fare in this last sector.
This should put him at least in P2 at the moment. Let's see what happens for him. Let's watch now coming through turn 20 there. DRS wide open, coming across the line now, and he does put himself into P2 with a 1:12.5. So quite close to Max Verstappen's time at the moment, but we will have to see if the Ferraris are able to battle it out for P1 with the last 18 minutes to go of this session. Of course, this is not qualifying. This is just practice, but still a great representation of what we should see tomorrow evening. Quite a few of you joining us on our channel at the moment. Thank you very much for watching alongside with us. Please do let us know where you are tuning in from, as well as drop a like and subscribe to our channel if you are enjoying the content that we are putting out for you. We will be streaming throughout this Monaco Grand Prix race weekend. Just watching a replay at the moment of Yuki Tsunoda. What does he do here down into turn 16? Ooh, he just kisses the barrier there on the inside. Very lucky not to break that front left suspension. Getting so close. Just watching as well how close the photographers are there behind that barrier. Tsunoda just saying, yes, I damaged the car. I think I touched the front left. So far, though, from the onboards and from the exterior shots, it doesn't look like...
Oh, my word, we've got Carlos Sainz in the wall. Carlos Sainz is in the wall. Yellow flag in Sector 3.
That will be a red flag, unfortunately. We've seen how even a little bit of debris, yes, as we now have the red flag waved. Even a little bit of debris on this track brings out the red flag. It looks like he had a little bit of a Max Verstappen moment there, possibly hitting the wall in the entry in turn 16 and then not having enough steering to get out and just hitting the wall there. History often repeats itself here in Monaco on the tightest, narrowest, and trickiest track of the race calendar.
Luckily, it doesn't look like too much damage other than the front axle seems to be very much broken. So that is going to be where the damage is for that Ferrari. Otherwise, the rest of the car seems to be fine. So hopefully the engineers won't have to do too much work, but that front axle and that front suspension is going to be needing some work. And yeah, the front right tire is not facing the right way at all.
Yes, luckily he does not have to have a new gearbox with the likes of Alex Albon, who had that massive shunt at the end of the session. Yes, he did exactly what I thought. He hit the wall on the entry into turn 16, broke that wishbone of his suspension, had no steering, and then had to hit the wall into turn 17. Just checking the rear of his car there, checking if he did cause too much. Ooh, it is actually a bit of a high energy impact there from the rear. So they will be doing a lot of checks in that Ferrari pit wall to see if he does need a new gearbox.
Just watching that replay now, just as he kisses that corner way too hard, and you can just see that front left, just the wishbone, as I said, just completely snaps summer, and then, just loses it even more as it comes towards that wall. Can't do anything about it. The tire loses itself completely. The car swings around and goes into the wall there,
Yeah, just saying on the radio, I crashed. Sorry, then being asked, are you okay? Yes, all good. Sorry about that. Unfortunately, there's nothing you can do once you hit that entry barrier and break the suspension. You have no more steering. You can't steer yourself out, and you just find yourself going towards a wall. I mean, luckily, a lot less of an impact than Max Verstappen had a few years ago in qualifying, but still certainly not ideal for the Ferrari of Carlos Sainz. Just watching the Ferrari engineers, they're looking not very impressed at the moment. Carlos Sainz has not had the most clean sheet of running with Ferrari since he joined. He's had a handful of crashes, unfortunately. as we watch on again with Jean Lacey on the pit wall, just watching Carlos Sainz walking past him now, looking quite unimpressed with himself as well.
Yeah, it's quite interesting you go and mention Sainz and his few crashes for Ferrari, but I don't think he's actually had too many in comparison to the likes of Charles Leclerc as well. I think they've pretty much match for match in the last couple of seasons. So I don't think they'll have to look too much at either driver for somebody just crashing a lot more. But what we do often hear from Carlos Sainz versus Leclerc is he always seems to take a lot longer to get to grips with the car, always saying he doesn't quite feel right for a long time. So yet again, I think they're just proving that theory again, just losing the car a little bit, taking a corner a little bit too early. It might not be the car's fault, might not even be the driver's fault, but just the tiniest lapse of concentration on this track, and that's exactly what can happen. You end up in the wall.
Well, watching since FP1, I've seen just how close Carlos likes to get to that wall. He's been brushing it the entire time, but just within his limits. He's been pretty much just kissing that wall, rubbing it ever so gently without causing any damage to his car. And now this time just getting a little bit too close. But unfortunately, that will certainly damage his confidence going into qualifying tomorrow.
Yeah.
You don't want to take as big of a risk when you've had such a big shunt. But unfortunately, he took a little bit too much. He got a bit greedy and paid the price for it, as we see him now talking to his uncle and manager.
Yeah, I don't think we'll see this red flag for too much longer. They've already got the car off the track right now. So just to clean up a little bit of that debris, and then they should get green lights to go again. Just 13 minutes left, still currently in red flag conditions. But we will, of course, get back to racing very shortly, I'm sure. And that'll be very good news for the entire grid, who some of them haven't actually managed to get some decent soft tyre runs yet. Just a couple in the beginning of this session, well, in the middle of the session when I took over. So we will hopefully see some quicker laps being put in towards the latter end of the session.
Just looking there at a replay of this, he doesn't take it, well, he does take it a little bit too early on the entry. So he just turns in a little bit too early and just manages to whack that wheel up against the edge of that barrier, and that just snaps the lower wishbone section of his suspension, which unfortunately is the part that gives you steering. So he just has no option. Just watching a replay of Charles Leclerc having the exact same moment in 2021. Charles Leclerc's moment was a little bit more high energy than Carlos Sainz's, so luckily Carlos got off a little bit lucky here. We've seen how this crash happens quite often, and yeah, once again, he's just lucky that it didn't cause more damage than it did.
And I'm trying to decide whether or not Tag Heuer is going to be happy or not happy, because their sign was the one that was hit quite badly first from Carlos Sainz, which ripped away some of its advertising. So they're going to be very upset about life. But at the same time, good coverage, because guess what? Now you're looking at Tag Heuer the whole time, every single time we watch the replay. And we do have a green flag. Sorry, I just want to say, we do have the practice continuing on. As you were saying, Reece.
Well, an interesting stat is the fact that in Monaco, normally at any racetrack, we see only Rolex branding around the entire track. In Monaco, though, Tag Heuer is also present. That is because Tag Heuer is a sponsor of the Monaco Grand Prix. It's one of Monaco's sponsors, so they are able to plaster them around the circuit. Of course, Rolex is not so happy about that, but they don't have much of a say.
No, and just a funny comment there. I do enjoy the from Pancon5. What an interesting name. And saying car loss. Yes, I do enjoy that. Yes, he is unfortunately out of the session, but we do have racing again. Watching on board here with the Aston Martin of Fernando Alonso. So he's out on softs, and we see a whole lot of cars coming out very quickly now to get some laps in towards the last part of the session. Just over 10 and a half minutes left until we will have the stop of the session and the stop of the day.
Finally, Alex Albon is out on track, though, after that massive blunder in FP1 where he hit the wall in turn 1. Finally out on track, going to set his first lap time of this session on the set of softs. We have everyone pretty much out at the moment except for Sainz, who of course is out of the session, Hamilton, Perez, Russell and Tsunoda, who I'm sure will be getting out very soon. As I say that, a few of those drivers actually do get out on track.
Indeed. And Alex Albon, as we go and talk about it as well, having his first lap of the session. Now, it'll be interesting to see how he fares in comparison to his teammate, Logan Sargent. Logan Sargent currently all the way down to 19th, not anywhere near the next lap in front of him, just 5.5 seconds off of Piastri in 18th, so very far off all of the drivers on the grid right now. And obviously his teammate's not coming out with the car all fixed up. So let's see how he can fare and if he can get ahead of it, because I think Logan Sargent was somebody I was talking about earlier as very much a dangerous prospect in terms of will he not be replaced soon?
Well, I certainly not that I dislike Sargent, but I think his seat is more suited to someone else. I mean, I'd love to have Mick Schumacher back in the sport. I mean, it would be great to have his name back in the sport, that is for sure, as well as to give Mick a bit more of a bit more of a chance to prove himself. As we currently have, is that Sergio Perez out on a set of mediums?
I'm not quite sure, but nonetheless,
Perez.
we'll keep an eye on it. And I think this is Albon now starting his first lap of the day. So let's go and follow on with Albon as he comes past that first corner and doesn't crash into it. So
Yes.
that's a good thing.
Yes, neat and tidy there through the first corner. No oversteer like he had at the end of FP1 where he ended the session. But looking neat and tidy now through the casino section, coming through turn 4 and making his way down towards turn 5.
Yeah,
0.1 seconds, though, off of the lead time of Max Verstappen. Lando Norris on the radio. Just being told to minimize full throttle at the moment. So clearly there's an engine issue at the moment with that car. We don't know what that is just yet. But there was also some issues for the McLaren of Lando Norris early on in the session where he wasn't able to get out for a bit as they needed to do some work on his car. Alex looking, though, neat and tidy, still not putting in any great lap times, but yeah, 2.3 seconds at the moment off of the pace. Maybe just trying to get his eye in yet again, maybe on some heavy fuel runs, but hopefully we will see him being able to get ahead of his teammate, who has been outperforming this entire season so far.
Yeah, and just to run you through the numbers at the moment, Verstappen sitting comfortably, well, I say comfortably, is sitting in first currently with 8 minutes to go, but Leclerc's literally riding his tail 0.065 seconds behind Verstappen, and Carlos Sainz, before the crash, obviously managing to put in the third fastest time. Alonso likely, hopefully, to beat that time before the end of the session. You're just watching a replay of Alex Albon coming out of the pits, and
it's such a looks like a
something
little
about
piece.
something comes off the car, I think.
Just trying to see where it came from. Can't spot it.
Oh.
Looks like it's off the rear.
I think it looks some of the rear there, yeah. It's if somebody goes and picks it up, I don't know what. I think they're looking at it thinking, what the hell is it? I think it might have been something that was not supposed to be on the car at all. Perhaps I think it was something that was
It
just
did
resting.
look like a piece of carbon, though, so maybe it was a bit of a flap from maybe their ERS charging ports or their fuel refilling ports. We don't necessarily know, but maybe we'll see a little bit more from that if they have to bring him back in. We now have Lewis Hamilton, though, out on track, putting in some fast laps on a set of mediums at the moment.
Yeah, so Hamilton here not going to be breaking any times on that timing board right now. Just going to put some race sims, I'm sure. So don't look at his times all too much as say 1.2 seconds off of Verstappen. And Reese, I hadn't had the opportunity to ask you beforehand, but you know, Mercedes are now rocking these new upgrades this race weekend, and a lot of big upgrades, and that's the big talk of the weekend. And how do you think they've fared so far in these first 2 sessions?
Well, there's 2 different ways that you can look at it at the moment. It is working wonders for Lewis Hamilton, who looks a lot more comfortable in the car. He's been putting in some fast times as he runs the chicane, as I say that, but he is on a set of mediums. But yes, Lewis Hamilton seems to be a lot more comfortable in the car, but unfortunately, Russell does not seem comfortable at all. At the moment, I think he's all the way down in P12. I mean, certainly not what you would want with new upgrades that your teammate is finding performance out of, and you're just struggling.
Especially when Toto Wolff also went and said that if anything should ever happen to Hamilton going forward in the next couple of years, we should leave the team, that George Russell is definitely the man to take over and be the lead driver for Merckx. So the fact that George Russell's really struggling with these new upgrades versus the season champion of Lewis Hamilton, I mean, so it speaks a little bit to his still new to the sport ultimately in comparison.
Well, no, I think the majority of the upgrades that they have brought to the car are to improve drivability, but also to improve drivability in the way that Hamilton prefers. They've improved it under braking. George Russell doesn't necessarily mind it being a little bit looser under braking. He's used to a Williams that was so uncompetitive and so loose in every single aspect, in braking, in turning, in stability, everything. So they've now brought in these upgrades, front suspension upgrades, as well as bringing in those side pods to work the aero a bit better, but still the stability with the new front suspension upgrades works more towards Lewis Hamilton's driving style than George Russell. So now George Russell is going to have to adapt himself yet again. He's already had to adapt his driving style to drive in the A-spec car. Now he's having to do it again in the B-spec car.
Yeah, just under 5 minutes to go here in the second session of the day. Williams watching on here very intently at Alex Albon, of course, going around. We see a replay here of Charles Leclerc with that same corner which Carlos Sainz had managed to take it off. Got so close to it. And
that's nothing compared to what Carlos was doing. Carlos was genuinely scraping it. It's incredible how close these drivers can get without taking themselves out of the session.
And what was interesting to note was due to the damage from Carlos Sainz there to that wall there, a little bit of the advertising, I mean, even though Charles Leclerc didn't touch the wall, a little bit of the advertising actually flew off just due to the sheer amount of force and the air pressure going right close to that wall there from Charles Leclerc. It's just quite interesting to see some of that tear off. Following Gasly here, who's currently sitting in ninth on a set of mediums as well. Nobody's really going to be breaking the times. I think we've probably seen our quickest times of the day so far. But let's go and see how he fares in this first sector on a set of mediums, of course. Compared to Verstappen's time, he goes in 1.29 seconds. So it's very similar to the Mercedes of Hamilton, to be fair.
Yeah, so we could get a bit of a battle between the Alpines and the Mercedes this weekend if Mercedes are not able to extract any more out of their new upgrade package. I don't know, Mark, if you've spoken a bit about our poll that we're running here at the moment, but the question was, which team is best placed this weekend to challenge Red Bull? Currently, our poll is sitting with Mercedes in the lead at 36%, saying Mercedes are going to challenge Red Bull this weekend. Certainly very, very optimistic for the Mercedes fans out there. Ferrari with 34% of the poll and Aston Martin with 27%. 3% saying another team is going to challenge Red Bull this weekend.
Yeah, just still watching on Gasly. I just want to see his time compared to Lewis Hamilton as it comes towards the final sector here, just going through the final couple of turns before that main straight. And I just want to see his time compared to that of Hamilton. Hamilton put in a 1:15 point something. So, so a little bit off there, Gasly there, compared to that Mercedes. Just wanted to see whether or not he'd get very close to Hamilton's time when he set on mediums. But nonetheless, looking at the grid here, we've got two Ferraris in second and third. Alonso in fourth, very, very close to those two Ferraris, and Charles Leclerc also exceptionally close to Verstappen's time in first. So I think it's all to race for tomorrow in the qualifier.
For sure. Who seems to be a bit of a shock at the moment is Sergio Perez, who normally loves street circuits. He's all the way down in seventh at the moment. I wonder if it's because Perez prefers fast street circuits, not necessarily these technical street circuits like Monaco, where it is not so much about the high speed that you carry through the corners. It's more about the lower speeds and being able to find that grip through these tight hairpins and tight chicanes, as Perez is all the way down in seventh at the moment with his teammates on the same tyres all the way up into first.
And as I say, of course, when you speak about grip with regards to Monaco, these tyres are a lot colder than they would be in most tracks because they just don't ever really get up to pace. So it's a very, very difficult track to try and find some grip on.
Well, you say that, but we had the Mercedes, I think of George Russell complaining a little bit in FP1 that he was overheating his rear tires. So, I mean, it's very interesting to hear that even though we say that you would think they don't have as much of an issue with heating their tires up here, that they're actually overheating them.
Yeah, nonetheless, we've got to follow now Piastri, who's in 18th. Again, Piastri, another one. We talk about Logan Sargent not having a great season. Piastri also really is not taken off yet, has he?
Well, I think that's more down to the car. Unfortunately, it's not necessarily giving him a great starting point for the season, as we have race control just reporting on an incident involving car 22, Yuki Tsunoda, for speeding in the pit lane. He will probably receive a small penalty for that, most likely monetary, not necessarily grid drop. Just watching Piastri now coming through the final sector to finish up his lap. Let's see if he is able to put in a good enough time to be able to compete with the Alpines. And bit of a slide there through turn 19 into 20 as he now approaches the line. Looks like he is doing some race pace though at the moment with a 1:18.2, as he didn't even open his wing down that DRS straight.
Yeah, and we've got just under 40 seconds now left of the session, so right near the end of it. And I think one of the big talking points from this session especially is, of course, Sainz having his little crash there. Luckily, it doesn't look like there's going to be too much damage, so I'm sure it'll be all fine by tomorrow. But Lando Norris in the McLaren, of course, the McLaren being rather useless this entire season, he's all the way up into 5th at the moment. So really, really doing very well in that McLaren compared to his teammate, who's all the way down in 18th.
Just watching an onboard of Fernando Alonso having a bit of oversteer into turn 16 and 17. Certainly not a point where you want to have any oversteer, just completely drifting the car, having to give it a big hand of correction through there. Luckily able to keep it out of the walls. The wise old fox of Fernando Alonso being able to just manage that and keep it out of the wall. Very luckily not having a repeat of his fellow Spaniards lap a few minutes ago. The session is now over, though, as we have Max Verstappen taking that fastest lap time of the session with a 1:12.46 to Charles Leclerc close behind in second, 0.065 seconds off of Max Verstappen's lead time right now. Carlos Sainz then down in third, 0.1 seconds off of Max Verstappen, followed by Fernando Alonso in the Aston Martin, 0.2 seconds off of Verstappen's time. Then for the top five, down the rest of the grid, we have Lando Norris in P5, Hamilton P6, looking good with those Mercedes upgrades ahead of Sergio Perez in P7, who seems to be struggling a little bit today in Monaco. Valtteri Bottas in P8, Pierre Gasly, the first of the Alpines, in P9, followed by his teammate Esteban Ocon in P10, Lance Stroll in P11, George Russell P12, really seeming to struggle with those new Mercedes upgrades, where his teammate is really finding a lot more pace than he is. Then we have Guan Yu Zhou in P13, Kevin Magnussen for the first of the Haas's in P14, followed by his teammate Nico Hülkenberg in P15, Yuki Tsunoda and Nick de Vries 16th and 17th, Oscar Piastri in his first Monaco race weekend in P18. Alex Albon, after that big shunt, puts himself into P19 ahead of his teammate Logan Sargent, who is in P20. Quite an interesting session though there, Mark.
Yeah, no, I think there's lots to look at that session and note. I think one of the interesting things that I'm seeing here is, with the exception of Ferrari and Alpine, well, obviously I don't really want to look all the way down the grid because those cars are slower, but I think Ferrari have probably come out of that session, ultimately, even with Sainz's crash, they're probably looking the best, right on Verstappen's tail. And not only that, the most consistent team with regards to both drivers, putting in very similar times. We look at the other teams, though, and there's a big gap from the first driver to the second driver. You see Max Verstappen in first for Red Bull, and Perez all the way down in seventh compared. Alonso's in fourth, and Stroll is all the way down in 11th. Similarly, Hamilton is in fourth, I think it was, or was it... sorry, we've just lost the scoreboard here. Is about sixth, and his teammate George Russell all the way down in 12th. So big gaps between a lot of the drivers of the big teams, and only Ferrari have got both their drivers right next to each other.
Yes, they were doing a bit of a... they are all going to do a bit of a race start practice here now, but let's see what happens. Just having a look, though, that was a very interesting session, and we will certainly be looking at these times tomorrow to see how this FP2 session compares to qualifying later tomorrow evening. Of course, qualifying being such an important session here in Monaco, often our race leader from qualifying will take the race win on the Sunday.
And drivers are just currently doing this, their practice starts here, and we are pretty much at the end of the session, so not much to talk about from now. So yeah, guys, thank you so much for watching Forever Motorsports on Forever Sports, the Monaco second practice session here, just looking at some beautiful shots of Monaco, looking absolutely stunning this weekend. So hopefully going to have some great racing conditions tomorrow and on Sunday. So just again, looking at the final results here of FP2 one more time. So Max Verstappen in first, Charles Leclerc and Carlos Sainz, those Ferraris in second and third. So can Ferrari beat Red Bull? That's going to be the big question. Can Fernando Alonso pull out some ultimately brilliant qualifying times tomorrow? Hopefully they can, and we're going to have it all to race for tomorrow in qualifying, and you can catch it here, of course, on Forever Motorsports, on Forever Sports. Reese, any final comments from the session?
No, nothing from me at the moment, but certainly very, very interesting to see Max Verstappen bouncing back in FP2 after only finishing FP3. I think it was in fourth or fifth. So certainly a much better session for him on the soft tires, putting himself into P1. But will we see those Ferraris being able to stay in second and third, or will we get that wise old fox of Fernando Alonso being able to push himself up further in the grid?
Indeed, and my final comment is the fact that Charles Leclerc is right on Max Verstappen's tail, so it's not like the Red Bulls have got that much more pace than the other cars on the grid at the moment, so perhaps could see some surprises tomorrow in qualifying if anything should happen with regards to red flags, yellow flags, and otherwise. So lots of interesting things could happen. But guys, thank you so much for watching, and we hope to see you in tomorrow's practice 3 session. And from me and Reese, we're going to head out and say goodbye.